So moving on, Sonia Meggie, grateful to have you with us. Sonia is the EMEA Diversity and Inclusion Manager at Bloomberg, and she's going to talk to us about why intersectionality matters. So Sonia, over to you.
Thank you and good morning. It's really good to be here, and also happy Black History Month and also happy Abilities Awareness Month as well. So I have a short presentation. It's actually not very short because I can talk a great deal, but I'm hopefully going to be able to whiz through it in the time that I've got. And if I run over slightly, feel free to just reach out to me afterwards. So a little bit about me. I am the D&I, so EMEA D&I manager at Bloomberg. I started in January. Prior to that, I worked for BITC, Business in the Community. So you may have heard a little bit about the work that BITC had done. And I'm really excited to be here at Bloomberg and work with such an incredible team. So this morning, I'm going to speak a little bit about intersectionality, a little bit about what we are doing at Bloomberg, but also what you can do and get you to just think about, particularly as a gender network, how you can also be intersectional in what you do. So moving on to the next slide. So a little bit about myself, alongside being at Bloomberg and also just what's been my passion. I also have a social enterprise called Inspirational You. And over the last 10 years, I've been focused on amplifying the voice of women, of Black professionals, and also of young people. I am incredibly passionate about legacy. That's what my calling is to think about my tomorrows and to think about the doors that I can also open. Won a few awards for it, and one of the other areas that I'm incredibly passionate about is ensuring that we really amplify what we do. And that's why I'm here today, to share that and hope that all of you will also go on to do the same thing. So I'm quite loud on social media, and I use that as my platform to share and rant. And I can see one of my colleagues has joined. And one of the things that I do share, maybe slightly sarcastically on social media, is if I don't have a comment, I'll just use googly eyes. So if you see that, that's just me just being slightly sarcastic in my personal capacity. So a little bit about Bloomberg and our D&I team. So our mission, so in terms of what we do in terms of the D&I team, is we look at our vision, which is that we are a global leader for diversity and inclusion. We are a catalyst for change, and we are there to enable our employees and businesses to be innovative. And also in terms of our vision, we are there to transition from some of us to some of all of us. And the hashtag that we use is inclusion means us all. And so how do we partner with the business? Oh, so someone's asking questions. So how do we partner with the business? We're focused on spreading awareness to articulate the business case for D&I. We set targets across the business as well. And those targets are fed right up to Michael Bloomberg, and all of the business leaders will give feedback as to how they have improved the targets that they have. We are very much focused on the visibility of underrepresented employees throughout the business cycle. We are focused on enhancing our culture of inclusion. We look at how we engage and mobilize our leaders, and we continuously refine our priorities and look at the programs and look at the reports as a result. I wanted to also tell you a little bit about the programs that we have here at Bloomberg as well. So we have a goal program. We have that running both in the UK and the US, and that's focused on identifying, attracting and retaining our underrepresented talent. And we also have acceleration programs. The female program is very much focused on our senior women, but it's also looking at how we accelerate our senior women. We are very much focused on an inclusive culture. So we have for everybody inclusive training. We have regional programming in our different offices in our different regions. So we have 3 regions: Americas, EMEA, and APAC. We also have a diversity core curriculum. And like many of you, we've been very much focused on self-ID. So we have a continuous self-ID program, which is run by a Workday, and we also have mental health campaigns as well. All of the businesses have B plans, as well as our communities. So our communities are what many of you will call either business resource group or employee resource groups. And those plans are revised every year. and they are also fed up to our management committee. And then just looking at the themes that we focus on as well as a business, as well as our communities, they are allyship, they are micro inequities, and they are intersectionality. So intersectionality is what I'm going to focus on today. I just wanted to tell you a little bit about the communities that we have. So in EMEA, which is where I'm based, we have 7 communities. We have the abilities communities. So if you go back to the first slides, I've added another slide, apologies. You can stay there. And so we have 7 communities here in EMEA. We have the abilities community, we have the Black professional community, we have the LGBT community, we have a diversity network and allies community, which is those who are based in our smaller offices. We have military and veterans, we have Pan-Asian, we have women, and we also have working families. All of our communities start with a B, so it's B Able, it's BPC, it's BMVC, and BWC, as you can imagine. Now moving on to intersectionality and how we work here at Bloomberg. So if we go to the slide that says intersectionality. Thank you very much. Now, some of you have heard of the term intersectionality, and one of the things that I always say to everybody is just put respect on where it came from, because it's used quite loosely now, and I think it's always important to remember the origins of a term. So it was a term that was coined by Professor Kimberly Crenshaw, and that was over 30 years ago. She is a professor that has very much been active within the feminist movement, but she coined the term originally because she recognized that within the feminist movement, she was often the only Black female. And there was also a court case that had also come about, and she wanted to ensure that she could allow all voices to be heard, but in particular, she was speaking about the voice of Black women. So this was used as part of a court case, and 30 years later, it's very much used, as we do now, to look at all of the different protected characteristics. So intersectionality, moving on to the next slide, is a framework for conceptualizing a person or a group of people, a social problem as affected by a number of discriminations and disadvantages. It takes into account people's overlapping identities and experiences in order to understand the complexities and prejudices that they face. Now, I'd like you to just take a look at the next slide, which is the intersectionality wheel. And this is the lens for which I hope all of us can start to look at in the work that we do. And that's thinking about how, regardless of the community, ERG, team we represent, if we're a sponsor or we're a part of a network, how can we always have an intersectional lens in everything that we do? Because I can speak as a Black female, and often when I've attended or participated in events that are focused on gender, I've often been the only person in the room, quite literally. And that can be quite wearing, but also it can mean that my voice isn't heard in the same way. But I am who I am. I am a Black female. So I'm very much interested in all things gender, but I'm also interested in things that are relating to my race. So as we look at everything with an intersectional lens, we have to think about some of the systemic barriers that impact those that may be underrepresented. And we have to think about the fact that intersectionality is also grounded in social justice. So if you've got a camera, a phone, rather, just take a picture of this and just think about how you can weave intersectionality into all that you are doing with your network. Moving on to the next slide. Over the last 18 months, we have seen that many organizations have made a huge impact to try and attract, develop and retain underrepresented employees. But there are still many challenges that many of us face in our industries. So women and ethnic minorities are still underrepresented at senior levels. We've heard that earlier today. Women and people of colour were most impacted in the pandemic, and I know this has been discussed quite a lot over the last year. Men experience mental health challenges at a higher ratio, which is compounded by stigma and often low disclosure. But there's underrepresentation or even bias and discrimination, particularly those who may have a disability and those who identify as LGBTQI. So we can all be excluded in different ways, and this can also compound the biases. So what I'm asking you also to do is just to think about, again, and I'll keep on reiterating this, what can you do with the space that you have? Now, I'm hoping you can just send a response in the chat to this. So I always look at scenarios, and there are often different scenarios that, that present itself and have presented itself, particularly to me over the last 2 years. And I thought this was particularly interesting because this is something that is presented to me and often many of my colleagues that work within this space. And that is that October is Black History Month. And questions like this are often asked. So I wanted you just take a quick read. Every year around this time, I feel very uncomfortable to be in the office. As an Asian minority, the Black History Month keeps on prompting me to think about whether we Asians or other ethnic minorities have any history at all in the UK. I cannot help but to realise that many companies have termed this similar period as BAME, and I wonder if there is any documentation where I could read more about, say, Bloomberg, and I'm using us as an example. I'm speaking as a Bloomberg employee, but this isn't a Bloomberg example. I'm motivating the Black History Month. I feel that I've read some readings. I need to get myself educated. So over to you in terms of just responding in the chat. How do you feel about this? Because I've heard this quite a lot, and particularly over the Black Lives Matter movement, there was quite a lot of comments that were made quite similar. And I had a friend who also worked in sports, and there was a lot of conversations about taking the knee and what that meant. So just feel free to respond to that. So just to give you a little bit of context, the Black History Month in the UK started in 1987, but there was a lot of historical context to that. And Black History Month is also about just celebrating and recognising a group that historically has faced severe discrimination, but also in terms of what we are doing in the workplace to try and attract and retain talent. This is a way to celebrate and recognise that underrepresented group. Another scenario for you. A colleague commented to you that a project manager on a team only got a promotion because she's a Black woman. We often hear the very same thing, just for women, full stop. This colleague has made negative comments before about women of colour getting promoted in this department. What would you do in that situation? So the issue here is that if this goes unchallenged, it continues to reinforce a damaging stereotype on the talent of people from underrepresented groups. Comments like this can often foster sexism and racism and make the workplace feel hostile, and employees are likely to leave if they work in such environments. So conscious of time, I'm going to move on to the next slide, which is scenario 3, another scenario for you. I'll get you to just take a quick look at this. A newly hired trans woman asks where the restroom is in the London office, and a colleague says, they're over there. I'm not sure what one you want to use. You overhear what your colleague says. What would you do in this scenario? Again, a conversation that many of us are continuing to have. And what I am enjoying is that I am seeing lots of employers also think about where bathrooms are situated, but also that they are unisex. So a scenario for you to think about. So what can you do as a network lead? You can think about who sits on your committee. The makeup of your committee is very much going to impact and influence what you do, also as a network, but also those of us who work in a D&I space, continuously think about refreshing the cultural awareness training that you have. Think about who your co-leads are. So it was great today to see that we have co-leads from another organization that are not just women. Because one of the things that we have to do is also think about how we reach a much wider audience, because if we just talk to ourselves, we are often going to get the same results. Thinking about how you can collaborate with other networks and other network pillars. One of the things that we do at Bloomberg is throughout each of the Heritage Months, each of our communities or our networks will collaborate and ensure that they feature one of the other communities as part of that month as well. And that's really important, particularly around raising visibility and awareness, but also making sure that everybody knows that their voice is equally as important. And then just thinking about your sponsor. What is your sponsor doing to promote intersectionality? What conversation is your sponsor having outside of their space with you as a network or as a community? And then we've heard this term so much over the last 2 years, and I continue to emphasize it. It's just thinking about how we can be an ally, thinking about how we can acknowledge and respect differences, how we can absolutely avoid assumptions. So when someone describes an experience that you haven't had, there's no need to jump in with your own story, just listen. How we listen, how we take time to listen on what we have learned, how we create an open space for others to be able to speak and share, but also how we get to know our colleagues from underrepresented groups, how we lead with empathy and compassion, how we continue to review resources, how you are continuing to educate yourself, how you attend and promote sessions that are outside of what you do, but also how you speak up and when you witness behaviours or words that are offensive. And then the why in ally, your role, how you take action, how you recommend people from underrepresented or diverse groups, how you, with the space that you have and the hat that you have, ensure that you are creating stretch assignments and career opportunities, how you are also, more importantly, coming outside of your comfort zone. And then moving on to the next slide, which is just going back to, yeah, there you go. Thank you so much. Intersectionality. Remembering that intersectionality is exactly this. Thinking about our education, social mobility, sexuality, our abilities, our age, our gender, our ethnicity, our culture, our language, our class, our race. Think about how we are respecting the voice of those who are around us, how we are being inclusive, how we're being collaborative. Think about who sits on your board, whether that's your committee or quite literally your senior leadership boards, and also how you are factoring in the different heritage months. So how can you as co-leads ensure that as part of the month that you may be leading on, so as part of International Women's Month, for example, you are amplifying the voice of those underrepresented groups. My time is up and I think I've gone over slightly, but I just wanted to share that we also at Bloomberg have different events coming up. Vanessa mentioned Menopause Awareness Day. That's on the 18th of this month. We have some public facing events and you are all invited to join all of those events. They are on our Bloomberg LinkedIn page, so you can sign up and enjoy those. Some of you will follow our global director, which is Pamela Hutchinson, and she produced a fantastic, very personal blog about menopause, and she'll be speaking as well. So do take a look at that and do feel free to sign up. And we also have a series which is called Power of Difference. And one of the things that we are focusing as part of Power of Difference is Black wealth and legacy. So we have a few events coming up as well for that. And then finally, we're really excited that we'll be speaking to Monroe Birdcroft, so do look out for that. And she's someone that I really admire, so do feel free to share and sign up to that too.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Sonia. Some real food for thought there. And again, obviously, you can go back on some of the slides that we skipped through. But again, looking at who's on your committee, looking at your executive sponsors, do they look the same? There's a key point there. Who are you putting on your stages? So lots of different things for you to kind of think about. And I thought that intersectionality wheel was an absolutely incredible tool. So again, it'll be in the slides, but thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your knowledge and expertise, Sonia. Fantastic as ever.